Chapter 15. Cruella de Vil. Grant led Delia into his apartment after school, waving to his mom on the way in. She brightened when she saw him, and especially when her eyes landed on Delia. "Well, hello there." "Hey, Mom, this is Delia," Grant said. "My new friend from school." "Very nice to meet you," Grant's mother said, wiping her hands on a dish towel as she stepped out of the kitchen. Something was burbling on the stove, and the delicious scent of it made Delia's stomach grumble. "He calls me Mom, of course, but you could call me Claudia." "Nice to meet you too," Delia said, but then Claudia's brow knit, and Grant grabbed Delia's arm. It felt stiff and plastic in his grasp as he turned her away from his mother. Delia's heart caught as she realized he didn't want his mom to get too close a look at her. It must have been getting worse. She was turning more and more plastic by the second. "Do you want some snacks?" Claudia offered. "Actually, we've got a lot of homework," Grant said. "We should probably just get started." "Of course. I'll bring you something to eat in a bit. It'll help you focus," his mom said with a knowing smile. Her eyes landed on Delia's heavy faux fur coat. "Do you want me to hang that up for you?" she asked. Delia hesitated, as if sensing that she might try to remove it. The coat tightened around her torso, squeezing her. After the whole mortifying hallway struggle at school, she knew that she couldn't take it off, and didn't want his mother to witness her struggling with it. No thanks," she said quickly. "She's always cold," Grant added with a forced chuckle. "We'll be in my room." Grant quickly led Delia down the carpet hallway. His family lived in a modest but homey apartment in Old Town. It was one floor, unlike Delia's townhouse, and newer construction. But sunlight streamed through the many windows, giving it a cheery vibe. Delia plopped down in Grant's desk chair and relaxed slightly. Something about Grant made her feel better. Maybe it was just having a friend. A real friend who didn't make fun of her on Pick Perfect or drop her at the first sign of trouble. Her eyes swept over his room. Vinyl record covers were affixed to the walls. A fluorescent green lava lamp sat next to the bed on a little table. A laptop sat on the desk, with an old record player next to it. Stacked against the wall were crates and crates of vinyl. Two vintage speakers bookended the wooden desk, which looked like it came from Replay Vintage. In fact, a lot of the furniture in their apartment looked that way. But Delia didn't mind. Somehow, it made the place feel cozy, like everything had a history, but one where people had cared for the items, then passed them on when it was time. "Your room is really cool," Delia commented. None of her friends had rooms that looked anything like this. "And look how many records you have." "Want to hear one?" he asked, clearly excited to play them for her. She nodded eagerly. Her neck felt stiff and tingly, but she tried to ignore it. He leaned past her and hit a button on the record player. The black vinyl started spinning. Then he dropped the needle. A sultry voice echoed out of the speakers over melodic jazz music. "Music always makes me feel better," he said, sitting down on the edge of his bed. Delia listened to the music, letting it carry her mind away on a symphonic ride. It was so different from anything she'd ever heard. It warmed her ears and her brain. Even her body felt less stiff. It was the most human she'd felt in days. "I love this song," she told him. "Really?" Grant said, looking thrilled. "This is jazz, my favorite style of music, but it's usually a bit of an acquired taste. Not a lot of kids our age listen to it anymore." "Is this him?" Delia asked. "Old Blue Eyes? The one you told me about?" "Sure is. What do you think?" Grant waited for her answer while she searched for the proper words to describe the indescribable way the music made her feel. He seemed nervous, almost like he cared. His voice sounds like... She started, closing her eyes to listen. "Butter." Grant snorted a laugh, and then his eyes widened. "You're a genius. It does." "I love it," Delia said. "I've never heard anything like it." Delia sat forward and automatically tried to remove her coat, but it tightened around her, and just like that, the bubble of contentment around her burst. Grant spotted the look on her face and turned more serious. "What's going on?" he said. "Start from the beginning. Tell me everything." She looked down and chewed her lip, feeling a surge of doubt. "You're not going to believe me. Honestly, I wouldn't believe me." "Go ahead," he said. "Try me." Delia took a deep breath, and it all spilled out. The more she talked about it, the less stiff her mouth felt, as if confessing helped her get better. She told him everything about finding the coat in the alley outside the House of DeVille's store and taking it, even though she knew it was wrong. How it was great at first, her physical transformation, her skin clearing up, her hair looking sleek and healthy, every selfie coming out perfect. How Harper and her friends actually liked her, and her pick-perfect ranking soared. Then how it all started to backfire. The horrible nightmares. The car trying to run her over and stalking her. How her limbs got tingly and stiff. She held out her hands for him to see. "I think it's turning me into a mannequin." "No way," he said, studying her plasticky skin. "But how is that possible?" Delia shook her head. "I don't know. But look at this." She showed him the DMs from the Fashion Addict account on Pick Perfect. "I can't explain it, but I think the coat is cursed." He frowned at the messages. "That does sound impossible." She turned away. "Ugh, I knew you wouldn't believe me." "You didn't let me finish," he cut her off. "But that doesn't mean I don't believe you. I can see how you're changing. Not to mention I did save you from that out-of-control driver." "Also, there's more," she went on, wanting to cry, trying to even, but her eyes felt frozen. They couldn't form tears. Delia stood up in a panic, but it took longer than it should have for her to rise out of her chair. "Oh no, oh no." "What? What is it?" Grant asked in a worried voice. She turned to the mirror on the back of his bedroom door and stared at her face. She looked like one of the old-fashioned dolls she used to play with when she was little. "It's getting worse," she said, pulling at the corner of her eyes, trying to make them move. "I can't even cry anymore. What is happening to me?" Grant looked over the coat. "You really think it's this coat that's doing this somehow?" Delia nodded, then tugged at it to demonstrate how she couldn't take it off. "No matter how hard I try, I can't take it off or get rid of it. And trust me, I've tried." She told him about trying to leave it back at the House of DeVille and how it was back home when she returned, then throwing it in the trash, only to find it back on her bed waiting for her. How she always woke up with it covering her, and now she couldn't take it off. How it kept getting heavier and tighter, like it was literally strangling her. "Ugh, I wish I'd listened to you," she said mournfully, "about Harper and social media, and that I never heard of House of DeVille." Grant made a strange face. "What did you say?" "House of DeVille," Delia repeated. "It's the big fashion brand." Grant bolted up and grabbed a pen and paper. "How do you spell it?" Delia gave him a strange look, but then jotted the name of the brand onto the pad. Grant took it from her and circled DeVille. Then he wrote something else underneath it. DEVIL. "OMG, you're right," Delia said. A chill ripped through her stiff body. How had she even never realized that before? It can't be a coincidence, can it? Grant hopped up and logged onto his computer. He Googled House of DeVille and pulled up articles on the fashion line. He clicked on the first one. The headline read, "House of DeVille Disappearances." He scanned it, then looked at Delia. It says here that back in the day, they had to discontinue a line of famed coats because it seemed as if everyone who purchased one mysteriously disappeared. Delia looked down at her coat. Disappeared? Grant was suddenly so pale he looked sick. "That's what this article is saying." Delia shivered. She wanted to rip the coat from her body, but she knew it was useless. The coat clung to her tighter, as if sensing her intentions. Grant continued reading. Only 95 of the 101 limited edition coats were sold before the House of DeVille was forced to recall the remaining garments amidst accusation of foul play. Although no malice was ever proven, the remaining House of DeVille factories were shut down, seemingly for good. But then, a few years ago, the factories mysteriously opened back up, and House of DeVille reappeared on the fashion scene as if it had never gone. It's so weird. I feel like the brand has been around forever. I've been following their social media since I had social media, Delia said. Grant's eyes scanned the rest of the article. This says nobody knows for sure who reopened the factories or who's behind the new fashion line in stores, he told her, looking up from his computer and meeting her gaze. Even the iconic Cruella de Vil might not be a real person. Nobody knows if she ever really existed. So it's all a mystery? Delia asked, her throat going dry. Yep, a mystery that makes their famous black and white coats and fashion accessories even more coveted, he said with a frown. It's kind of genius when you think about it. Or totally manipulative and creepy, Delia suggested. Grant shrugged and hit a few keys on the keyboard. Apparently, the coat you're wearing with the color block design is the famed Cruella coat. Delia would have rolled her eyes if she could have. Everyone knew about the Cruella coat. It says they destroyed the unsold coats. But the designer herself is always pictured wearing one, Grant said after scanning the rest of the article, but only from the back. Nobody's ever seen her face or knows what she looks like. He pointed to the picture of Cruella de Vil from the back wearing the coat. So weird. It was the same as the one in House of DeVille's profile picture on Pick Perfect. Delia looked down at the coat. So you're saying this coat might have belonged to her? Yes, it's possible, Grant said. If she ever really existed, who knows? None of this explains why this is happening to me, though, Delia said desperately, focusing to get the words past her plastic lips. If this coat is cursed and slowly turning me into a you-know-what, then what am I going to do? Grant frowned. I don't know yet, but I'm going to do more research. There must be a way to make it stop. I won't let this happen to you. Delia couldn't explain it, but she believed him. She clung to that hope, even as her body grew stiffer and her face refused to smile. She glanced at the picture of Cruella de Vil with her half-black, half-white head of spiky hair and her faux fur coat, then met Grant's determined eyes. His friendship made all the scary things she was facing feel somehow less scary. It was better medicine than even hot chocolate or jazz, and that was saying a lot. We're going to fix this, Grant promised, if it's the last thing I do. Together, Delia said.